Here. Welcome to Daily Dose. My name is Robert. That's my pal Susan wearing the lovely garment. What would you call the garment? Is it a headdress?
This would be a scarf.
A scarf. It's the big words that get me every time.
Yeah.
This is your Daily Dose, and we're hanging out together. And I think it's a neat thing to think about. I'll put it in context of our relationship, which is the long view. We have had an immediate friendship that started almost 3 years ago now. We're coming up
Yeah.
to that.
Crazy.
And then we saw it open and evolve. And now I think, to me, it feels like we're in a kind of blissful place where we're seeing both our personal selves and our relationship open up like excitingly in front of us. And
The, the potential and the reality
yeah,
that, there is a nonprofit out there for real, legit.
yeah.
Yeah.
And right, it was one thing to get it. Now we're seeing what to do with it. I mean, and you've been talking about, one of the many growth areas to me that's very exciting to me, I see in you and hear from you, is you stepping into this role. You said yes to being the, FIT festival coordinator with a lot of trepidation and said yes anyway. That's courage, right?
Well, it was kind of like, I never said yes on the phone when you asked me. And then I wrote you a letter that same day and said, of course, the answer is yes.
Well, and it's worth mentioning too, because you said you'd been asked about these types of roles before and said no repeatedly. It just didn't seem to fit you. What's different now, and how are you seeing yourself evolve?
Believing in the project.
Mm.
If I were asked to support, a children's wing in the hospital or something, of course my heart would feel wonderful about that, but I wouldn't have a personal passion and I wouldn't have had my life changed already by some, raising money for the Philharmonic or whatever. It's not the same. And this work has changed my life. Yaks and Day One program have changed my life. So that allowed me to be here. So that's
Well, you've been the exemplary person to me in the program, as much, if not more, than I could have ever asked for in that regard, because I know this as a teacher, as a coach. This is a big part of my life, what I do. I always say I can't teach someone to care, and
Aw.
you'd care. Um, and you had an interesting story from that documentary you mentioned today about finding a way to care. I think it was in the Doc Rivers portion of it. What was the name of the documentary, and what was it about the buy-in that got people to care? Do you remember that?
The name of the documentary was The Playbook, A
Okay,
Coach's Lessons on Life or something like
on
that.
Netflix.
Yes, and Doc Rivers had a woman come up to him at the end of a game and said, she gave him this word written down, and she said, this is not just a word. This is a whole way of being. This is a whole concept of life, and you need to go look it up and figure out what it means, and that's who your team needs to become. He's like, okay. And
Yeah,
he stayed up all night. He talked about papers and stuff all over his bed. That it was the word. The word actually is an African word, Ubuntu,
I think that's right.
Ubuntu, that Nelson Mandela and Desmond Tutu um, talk about and manifest and live, and it became a unifying force because the theme of the definition of the word was essentially, I can't become my best self by myself. I
Oh,
need
love that.
the community. We all need each other, and we need to depend on it. And so in basketball, it's passing the ball or passing the ball or passing the ball.
When it's played at its best, a lot of times you see people selfishly not passing the ball, who may be highly skilled.
And he had just hired 3 solo players, Kevin Durant and a couple other guys, I think.
Kevin Garnett
I
and
mean, Garnett, and
yeah,
yes,
that's right.
I knew
The
it.
great
When I said that, I thought that's not right. Thank
yeah.
you. And he made those guys tell the team about the concept and demonstrate it, and it became when they all put their hands in and they go 3-2-1 Celtics. Well, it was 3-2-1 Ubuntu.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
it harkens to the idea of something bigger than yourself, right? You
that
have to
does.
sacrifice ego in order to believe something's bigger than you, and then care to this degree to say, I love us enough to give up parts of that might feel individually important to me. Beautiful,
Because the individually important gets highlighted and magnified and dialed up and more rich when you do.
right?
At
It's
least that's how you
it
and I.
is to finish this, one of my a line from one of my favorite movies, The Devil's Advocate with Al Pacino. I don't know if you've seen that. Right at the end of it, he talks about his favorite sin, and I believe it was ego. I believe that because
Wow, interesting.
after Keanu Reeves had passed the whole thing, he and thought he had banished the devil and everything. There was some kind of ego thing, and Pacino kind of winks at the camera. That's my favorite one, and yeah, because it's such low hanging fruit.
That's
All right, that's your daily dose. We'll see you on the next
your
one.
daily dose.